but he can't record it.
Oh, I'm wrong. Okay, I'm recording.
Yeah.
We'll be quiet for like 5 seconds. That'll intro. All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Sports Life Network Soccer Podcast. I don't know what number this is, but today I'm hosting alongside Seth.
Hello.
And we have Nicholas McGrath as usual.
Oh, what's up?
And obviously Marcus, biggest United fan in the world, to where we're going to win the Champions League. All right, so there's been a lot to talk about this week, mainly Premier League return. I know we all want to talk about that. I would say, honestly, the highlight, just getting right into it, of this week for Premier League has to be Arsenal. Has to be the 2 games Arsenal played. So the first game Arsenal played, they lost. It was 3-0 to Manchester City. David Luiz had one of the worst performances almost of all time in the Premier League. Off the bench in only, about 20 minutes?
Yep,
giving away a penalty and getting sent off, and an error leading to a goal. And then obviously they lost to Brighton the next game 2-1 with a 94th minute winner. That was literally the last minute of extra time. So honestly, what do you guys think? Where do you guys think Arsenal goes from here? Because that was terrible. Oh, we have Amir joining as well, I think. Late edition.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's going on, Amir? We're talking about Arsenal.
Huh?
Talking about Arsenal.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I just think Arsenal just can't. They can't attack. They can't defend. They just look terrible. And honestly, they put up between those 2 games, 1.2 xG thereabouts, and they had the edge over Brighton on xG, but they looked like crap against City. And in my opinion, honestly, I just think they really struggled to get stuff going. Like, you look at Aubameyang, he was barely in the Man City game, and I think Bernard Leno was the only reason that they stayed in it for as long as they did. And eventually they just capitulated. And you got to say, like, the injuries killed them. David Luiz, especially, as you were saying, killed them. But I'm hearing today that he might sign a new contract to keep him there till it might be the end of the season, or just
he's close to a one-year contract,
which is interesting. But he is I think it's interesting because he actually works for the way that Arteta wants to play. He's very good at playing it out the back, but I don't know. He's just come back and looked like an absolute joke. He's not been, tracking back in the Brentford game. He didn't track back to defend in the friendly they played. And these 2 games, obviously the Man City game's been terrible, and then Arsenal, the Brighton game, they that defense.
Nick, didn't you say Arsenal are gonna get top 4? Remember before their first game?
I said it wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise you if Arsenal took top 4. Wow.
Yeah,
but nobody could have predicted the injuries. Nobody could have seen that coming. Yeah. That was the injuries in the positions they did get them in are going to ruin them, because now their defensive cover in midfield is pretty much non-existent, and their defense is, I would say, probably the 3rd string at this point. So,
do you think Arsenal has the power to bring in people in the summer? Because they definitely need some squad depth.
Yeah, I think they'll make signings. I think they've made some strange signings recently. I think the Brazilian defender who was injured recently, I thought was pretty strange. They also signed that young French center back, but then loaned him back. So they'll have him back. So I would say they'll probably sign at least 1 more center back, just because of Rob Holdings and Calum Chambers' injury records are pretty horrendous. Mustafi's still at the club, and Socrates' contract is up at the end of this season.
Oh, he's been terrible.
So he'll be gone. David Luiz, if he signs, he'll be there for 1 more year. But Mustafi, I think, only has a year left on his contract. So they'll be looking at definitely signing younger guys. I know Upamecano's been on their transfer targets for a while, but I don't see that happening if they don't get Europe, because I think Upamecano is currently at a Champions League level at this point.
I think that's the biggest thing right now, is the fact that they're sitting in 10th right now, and if they really don't get any European play as Arsenal, I really don't think many people even look towards them to go towards. Because why wouldn't you just go to a different team that's in Europe competition, they might as well try.
I mean, Arsenal is a massive club, though. Like that's one key factor for like why players still want to sign for United too. Like, even though
Yeah, but I think
Yeah,
it differs. I think it differs because United has seen some success, like the fact that they won Europa League.
I mean,
Three
but Arsenal
years ago.
I
Arsenal
get
was.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
But
they were
Arsenal
in the
also have
finals.
been Champions League. Like they finished top 4 many times.
Mm-hmm.
But recently, it's been pretty bad. I can see.
Yeah.
Well, I think they can be savvy, and I think one of the things that they have to be careful of is the outgoings this summer. Aubameyang looks like he could be going. Lacazette looks like he could be going. The fact that Ozil hasn't played in these 2 games, it looks like he probably should be on the way out. So they have sellable assets. I don't know how sellable Ozil is on his wages, but they have assets that they can let go and they can start to rebuild. Saliba has actually been quite good this season. Sanatian have not been fantastic, but Saliba and his partner have actually been quite good. So I think he'll come in and probably shore up the defense just a little bit. The question is, can they just like it looks like they're already limping to the end of the season, which is not good. But I think that they can make some savvy acquisitions in the summer at least and try and go low budget because I don't think they have the budget for any large signings right now.
And I think what is fortunate about their squad is that they have a lot of talent along the front lines. So I don't think they really need to make much of a dip into the transfer market in that aspect because they have Emil Smith-Rowe, who spent 2 seasons out on loan. He's still only 19. He's been okay for Huddersfield. Didn't get that many games, but he's been okay. They have Reece Nelson, who sort of disappeared out of the picture, but had a great season for TSG Hoffenheim last year and could probably make an impact in that Arsenal team. All of these guys are pacey and in the mold of a player like Aubameyang, where they can play at striker or play on the wing or play in a number of different positions. But then also Joe Willock's been getting games. I think he's good. And then also Eddie Nketiah has been getting games and starting at striker, which
he was decent at Leeds.
And he was decent at Leeds. So they have a lot of young.
He wasn't
British
getting minutes. That
talent.
was the problem.
Exactly, he was coming off the bench a lot, and they were favoring Patrick Bamford. But I think if those guys can get consistent minutes, Arteta, following along the lines of how Pep has coached younger players, might be able to get some good production out of those guys, and then they can use their transfer funds to worry about, replacing Ozil at attacking midfield or looking at center backs because I think their fullbacks are pretty good. Like I think Tierney's good. Kolasinac is a good backup. And I don't know if he's a backup, but he probably deserves to play in a starting role in a team. But I think he's good. He's physical, which matches the league. He's played at left mid for Schalke. I think he's versatile.
They have Cedric at backup.
Cedric backup right back. They have Bellerin. Maitland-Niles can play right back as well. I think they have a lot of flexibility there. So I think really center back and figuring out that midfield position is going to be crucial. Yeah. But I mean, I don't necessarily want Arsenal to be successful, but I think they have the tools to be successful, and they just need to have a good window.
It seems like it's a while off. That's the thing.
It is. I think it's a couple of seasons that they have to be working at this, but I think that they, like Seth said, there's the tools there. There's at least some components in the squad that you can see going forward. So I don't necessarily agree with all the people who believe that Arsenal are doomed. I think they're in a terrible position. They've been in the worst position. They're in the worst position they've been in for years. But I do think that there is some road for them back to the top. So that's really
it's worth mentioning though that their midfield has they produce no goals from the midfield. Like it's horrible. Mesut Ozil, I think he has 1 goal and 2 assists this season, and he has somewhere around 1,500 minutes. But he yes, maybe he's having troubles with the coaches, but I feel like something happened to him. He needs a new club or something because his last good season was the 15-16 season when he almost broke the assist record. But since then, I mean, he had a couple okay seasons, but then after that, when Unai Emery came in, he's just became nothing, a shadow of himself. And I don't think Xhaka has any goal contributions. Just in general, they get no goal contributions from the midfield. Like, so all those youth players that were mentioned before by you and Seth, like, some of them can easily come in and like prove a point because there's a lot of holes in that midfield.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I think we can move on to I would say the next biggest topic would probably be a combination of Sané deciding to move on from City and Liverpool's draw to Everton. So we can start with City. Do you think Sané is like a loss to the City team, like a big one that will actually hurt them, regardless if they're in Champions League next year?
I think it's huge.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of obviously because he hasn't played this season, it's not as talked about, and the fee has kind of been steadily knocked down as it's gone on. But when you look at City, one of the things that they've actually lacked this season, and it's not talked about as much, but it's actually the pace overall in the team. So when you look at their defense, actually, if you start there, the reason they've been found out so many times, but is because they actually don't have a very fast back line. Laporte is actually is decently quick and can cover spaces, but Kyle Walker has constantly been the last guy back defending in like desperate situations. Obviously, Laporte's been injured, and so the same thing happens with all the makeshift defenders that they've used. Obviously, like Fernandinho, like coming into that back line. So and that's bled forward into the midfield with Rodri, because Rodri's a very stationary player, not a very active, quick defensive midfielder. And so all of that kind of leads up to the front line, and the front line lacks a little bit of pace as well. And so it's that extra weapon that they are losing. So obviously Sterling is a quick player, right? But I don't think in the league you have a player who has the ability and in combination with that pace of Sané, because Sané is a creative player. He's certainly very good at scoring, but it's also just that lethal pace. Like I think that the only other player who matches him in the way that he plays is probably like a Adama Traore or a Sadio Mane. But I think that Sané is just like, he's just so fast. So I think that it's just a weapon that City are losing. And I think that that's something that they really need to sort out. So they should be looking for other players. Obviously, they've started fantastically well, and he hasn't been playing in these first couple of games very much. But you still get the sense that as soon as you start losing those like extra weapons, Pep has to like rejig the entire side, because he's had to this season. So, and it's not like the forward line has been bad. It's just that extra weapon that they're losing, which is huge.
Do you think he'll stick around to help retool the team, really? Because it doesn't seem like obviously they need too much work, but with the way things are looking at, they'll probably be out of Champions League next year. Do you think he'd stay for at least, let's say,
I don't know.
3 more seasons? I have no idea.
I have no clue.
Yeah.
Seth, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I was going to move to
Are
Seth.
you talking about Pep or Sané?
Yeah, Pep. Pep staying for at least like 3 seasons more.
If the Champions League thing, right?
Right now, it appears to me like I have no idea where Pep would go.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Which is where I'm a little bit confused. He's he's managed every super team in Europe, bar Real Madrid, which he would never go to.
No.
And PSG, really, which I don't think he would be necessarily a very good fit for either. But to me, it seems like he's found a club that is willing to give him so much trust that he can basically transform the entire format of how everything runs from the bottom to the top, which I think for someone like him, someone who is so much of a mind, so much of a scholar of the game, that's what he wants. He wants like such a broad administrative role over recruitment, over the youth teams and things like that. And that's how you end up with someone like Mikel Arteta coming out of that system and being a Premier League coach as basically his first job. And it's like he has so much influence that I think he could even take a step back from being a manager and be the sporting director of Manchester City, or go to Barcelona and be the sporting director of Barcelona and be excellent at that job. But to me right now, it seems impossible to separate him from coaching, because he's been the face of coaching for the past 10 years or so, and he's been so successful. But I think his fame is so tied to the Champions League. I can't imagine him not in the Champions League. So
I think he could be able to handle for one season.
yeah, I think he would be able to handle it for one season, but I don't know. It just seems like once Sane leaves, which Sane wasn't a Pep signing, I don't think.
No.
I think Pep might start looking towards going back to like La Liga, like City's transfer policy towards the beginning of the decade, like looking at not experienced players, but players who have done well in the Spanish league and have that sort of pace, have that creative ability, because Sane to me is like the perfect fit for Bayern Munich. He has that rare combination of stature and speed. He's great technically, can score goals, and will get Lewandowski goals. And his injury record isn't great, but he's so young, so exciting, and he's exactly the sort of player that Bayern Munich fans have been wanting their team to sign for a while. And I think now that City have been so successful since 2011, City fans now want Manchester City to sign young players. So if Sane goes, I think someone else will just come in. Like I think it won't be that difficult for them to find a young, exciting player, especially with a Spanish coach, with how many young, exciting players there are coming out of Spain, all the connections that Pep has in that league. He will have to rejig the team, I think, but Nick brings up a great point. Pace is something that you can't just like coach into a team. So they'll replace Sane with more pace at some point, I think. Because you're right. Sterling is really Sterling or Cancelo are really the only fast players, I would say, in that team.
There's been talk of Leon Bailey coming in, and like I actually like Leon Bailey quite a bit, and it is another left-sided, left-footed player, which is there isn't actually a lot of those in the market right now. But I don't know if he's going to be the same quality. I think he's a very good player, but I don't think he's anywhere close to the level of Leroy Sané. But I also think when you mention how tied Pep is to the Champions League, it's actually a very good point, because I think that his depending on how they do, and we've seen now that the schedule has come out for the Champions League, it's over 11 days or so. I think him staying is very tied to that. If he can win the competition, I could see him just leaving, because there's nothing more for him to do at City. And I don't see, like, if he lost it, I think he would still be determined to win it. I just don't. I think the only other club that would really go for him and with a chance of getting him would be Juventus at this point. But I don't think he really wants to manage there. So I would say that he'll probably stick around at least. But I think he's everything is tied to, does he win the Champions League in August? Because that's why he's there.
What game are we talking about right now?
We're just talking a little bit about City and if Pep would be willing to stay. And Nick expressed that he thinks if Pep were to win this season's Champions League, that he could see him leaving, which I don't really know if he would right away.
You guys know
something would have to open up.
You guys know when his contract ends?
No. Isn't this?
Do
you think City is one of the stronger teams?
2023.
Oh, 2023.
I think it's 2023.
All right. Do you think City are one of the stronger teams left in the Champions League for this season? You would definitely put them. Yeah, you would definitely put them in the top half, but I don't know. We still have Barca. I think they still have to play their second leg. City still have to play against Real. Yeah, City still have to play theirs. Juve is still in there.
City are not favorites over Bayern, though. Surely Bayern are.
That's what I was kind of thinking.
Agreed. Yeah, I'd go with that. Yeah.
Who would you pick as your favorite?
Me, I'd probably say Bayern, but honestly, I don't really care about who's the favorite and ever, because anything can happen in these knockout. Yeah, Atletico can easily go to the final. That wouldn't be extremely far fetched.
Mm-hmm.
no one predicted.
Especially because Atletico are playing so well right now.
They are playing fantastic right now.
They look incredible. If their league position wasn't so bad before the break, they would be fighting for the title. They're playing just as well as Real Madrid, if not better, with a way worse squad. Their squad is so much worse than Real's, and it's like, where was this months ago? You know?
The list of players they lost is crazy. They lost like Godin, Griezmann. We lost Gabby a few years back. Juan Fran. Lost many key players.
Felipe Luis. Not Saul yet, but Rodri.
Lucas Hernandez, Rodri. Rodri's only there for season, but yeah, and they're still. After this quarantine, let's see, they got 3 clean sheets in a row right now, which is just really good. They've conceded one goal in 4 games.
Felipe is a revelation.
He's amazing. He's been amazing.
Where I don't understand what his career was before Porto. He was at before he was at Porto, I had no idea who he was, and then suddenly he's like a world-class defender at Atletico. But I guess Simeone has been shown to do that to people, to make defenders that nobody has any idea who the heck they are and turn them into great players, i.e. Miranda. What? Like Miranda? He was just like world-class for a few seasons and then was very average at Inter.
So him and Godin became like world-class.
They were incredible.
Yeah, Godin was one of like the top.
I would say the best defender in the world.
I would say my favorite right now for the Champions League is Bayern Munich. Because I've watched them play.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Regardless of whether Bayern play their A team or their B team, Bayern look like they could beat any team in the world right now. They have so much depth. All their players are coming back from injury. I think the only person they're still waiting on for full fitness is Niklas Sula. And it's like
Lewandowski's near 50 goals. Lewandowski's near 50 goals this season.
Lewandowski's probably going to pick up the golden shoe. I can't remember the last time a Bundesliga player did that. It's just
they have 4 games left. It's like very.
No, they look incredible.
Yeah,
Would you put them over?
Alphonso Davies is like extremely exciting.
What was the question, Marcus?
I was gonna say you'd put them over, let's say like Barca in the finals if Barca were to make it
Easily.
Yeah.
I think
they have that
definitely.
They have that edge.
I think that's a game that Bayern would actually relish that because they would finally up against a team that after weeks of playing against teams in the Bundesliga that really couldn't keep up with them.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing against a team that's really going to test them. And it's a team.
I don't know.
It's a team that's I know they don't look great right now, but
it's going to depend on Messi.
Barca wants to hold on to the ball. And Bayern play against a lot of teams that don't want to hold on to the ball.
Yeah.
And I think Bayern have so much pace on the counter in Kingsley Coman, Alphonso Davies. Like, they can
broke a sprint
destroy
record, actually.
Gnabry's on fire this season, too.
Gnabry is so fast.
Gnabry is huge.
And then they have incredible finishers in the midfield and in the attack. Thomas Muller can score goals whenever he's gets a chance, he scores.
He creates. That's what he's been so good.
So much, but it's not like what we were talking about earlier with Arsenal, where their midfield doesn't contribute. Goretzka scores goals. Thiago contributes goals. Kimmich contributes goals. Muller contributes goals. Coman has been quiet, but even still, he's been good down the wing, just like progressing the ball. Gnabry contributes, and then you have the best striker in Europe up top. I don't see them, and Neuer hasn't had his best season. But he's
been better than last season.
Exactly, he was way better than last season, and he's been good, and he's in his 30s now. So, I think this is their chance to win the Champions League. This is when they
surely.
This is their best chance.
I just want to see that. I want to see that matchup though, Barcelona versus Bayern, because that would just be so intense.
It might happen in the next round, the semifinals.
Yeah, I want to have
Barca have to get past whatever team first, though. Napoli.
Is it 1-1?
Yeah, that game can go 0-0. Barcelona will go through, so I don't think.
Okay, they got the away goal.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I'm excited to see Champions League for sure. It almost replaced the Euros in a way. I did want to see Ronaldo in the Euros at a younger age. Then obviously he will be next year, but this will be good enough.
That is how time works.
That is how time works. So I guess we can move on to either, I don't know, there's like Liverpool, Everton was kind of like almost like a small blip that everyone made it a big deal. Felt like the networks are making a big deal that obviously they could beat, Everton, the big Merseyside derby, and lift a trophy. But apparently, I didn't watch the game, but I heard that Everton had the better chances, even though Liverpool had majority.
I have a hot take, yeah. I think Everton kind of deserved it. I think they kind of missed some of their opportunities. I think particularly that Calvert-Lewin chance that Richarlison, that's a perfect ball, perfect little flick on. There was that, and then the follow-up from Tom Davies. I was a little bummed out to see that because I thought they were I don't know, I thought they were playing well. I mean, neither team really looked like super convincing. If you look at the stats, there weren't many shots on target. XG had it literally about even at less. Both of them had less than 0.7. So neither team was really taking control of the game, which you would not like to see. It was kind of draw city, to be honest, this weekend. But yeah, I mean, I think Everton kind of deserves it. That's really all I got to say.
I'd say the biggest highlight of the game was before the kickoff when Sadio Mane accidentally ran.
Oh man, Mane
that was a big error. That not gonna lie.
Yeah, no one told them for sure.
But yeah, this game, everyone knows Liverpool winning the title. It's just a question of when. And Everton, if they won, it would have been good for them. They would have maybe pushed for Europa League. But yeah, in terms of the table, this wasn't that big of a game. It was just fun to see two teams of good quality match up against each other, and to see if how Ancelotti is doing with this Everton team against a giant Liverpool.
For having a squad that has plenty of holes in it, I think Ancelotti has markedly improved Everton, and if they spend big like they did, and I think the 2016 summer window when they
spent like 30 million on Sandro Ramirez. He was a sports player, and he scored. I think he scored no league goals.
And he was but I just think if they spend money and they buy players that Ancelotti thinks will fill the gaps in that team, I think they will be competing for the Europa League spots, and I think the gulf in quality between them and the bottom half of the table is going to become a lot more apparent because a team like Crystal Palace is doing very well, but they have a worse squad than Everton and a worse coach than Everton. So I think after a window, it'll be Everton's time to sort of go back to the time when Lukaku was scoring 20 goals a season and they were in and about the Europa League.
They used to come
even then they were bad. They were kind of bad with Roberto Martinez because their defense is horrible. They'd finish 10th, 11th, around that. But yeah, about Crystal Palace, they'll probably lose Zaha this season or next season.
Zaha has to leave. I feel so bad watching him just basically try his hardest in most games. Some games he definitely has some attitude. But I don't know. What do you not like about him, Nick?
I think he's massively overrated.
Really? I feel like he has a similar take on style to Saint Maximin. Yeah. Do you appreciate Saint Maximin at Newcastle?
Not as much as other people do.
Really? Because I don't see that in a lot of players.
I think you can but I think there are players in the league that that people say are kind of that people say rip up the league. No, I think they produce a fantastic highlight reel because they're great dribblers. But I don't think they create much, and I don't think they score much.
Yeah.
So I think Zaha has been the reason Palace has been great for the last couple of years, definitely. But when I say great, I mean just better than you did.
Yeah.
But do I think that they should have sold him? Yeah, and they should have rebuilt the side. I think I don't think he's a 70 million pound player, which is what Crystal Palace seem to think he is.
Yeah. They didn't leave him. They didn't let him leave. I remember a couple summers because.
But that's what happens when you sign a massive contract.
I have no idea why United were linked with him. I have no idea.
Left him, you said, or dropped him?
When he left for Crystal Palace, and then about 3 seasons in, he was linked with going back to United.
Yep.
I had no inkling as to why United would sign a player like Wilfried Zaha if Memphis Depay didn't work out. I don't know why you would go for a player like Zaha. Because you spend so much money on Memphis Depay, and you're not even paying the price you pay for an English player. or playing for a Premier League player. They still pay so much for him, doesn't work out, and then they're linked with Wilfried Zaha, who we already had as a player. And I just don't understand why there's this complex with Wilfried Zaha that because he is such a good dribbler, and he is by far and away the best dribbler in that Crystal Palace team, and creates so much and goes through him, but they still can't score goals, and he doesn't get that many goal contributions. I don't know why he's linked with such an expensive move or with these top teams.
I
Not
think
that
it's because he would fit in a different system. If he was at like Chelsea or somewhere else when he was younger, especially even if he had just stayed at United, he may have developed just a little bit more. And I think that's where like the whole overrated thing is, because he went to Crystal Palace and stayed there, and Benteke had some like awful seasons, and then they kind of sold some of their players. He seems so much better maybe than some of the other players there at Palace, but you'll never really know how he would have done like for 5 years at Arsenal or Chelsea or United or anywhere else really. But I would like to see him go.
Actually.
Well,
Because
you should
when
definitely
you look at Adama is a very similar situation, but he got the coaching that he needed from Nuno.
And Adama has goal contributions, unlike Zaha.
That's
Yeah,
the
but
difference.
that was not something that was a thing until this year. That was something that Nuno kind of coached into him.
he pretty
Like,
much did nothing last year.
Yeah, he was
last year he was just
like
a
he's
big
an
guy.
elite dribbler. That's what I'm saying. Like there are players like that who are just elite dribblers, and all they lack is that one coach who says, "This is what you need to do. Just position yourself here, take the ball, cross it in, and that it's going to change your entire game." And so I
Nick,
think
that was Raheem Sterling.
that was Raheem Sterling.
Hot
So-
take.
Like, no, I actually agree with you on that. I think that's actually a very valid point. So so I guess in the end, Marcus with the coaching thing and the system thing, I mean, perhaps, but I just don't see at his age any team that would really take him in and have a coach turn him into something.
Honestly,
at that age.
Zaha should go to China because like he's like
Hey, he'll get paid. Yeah.
He could pull a Witzel and come back
come
and be one of
back,
the best players in his league.
Or can be Hulk and stay there forever.
I just think Zaha would be a good fit for a league that
he was linked to
isn't
Dortmund.
so,
He was linked to Dortmund like a couple years ago.
just a league that isn't so like ruthless at the bottom. Like the bottom of the Premier League, I think, is so ruthless, and like the Crystal Palace team is built like a rugby team. They have so many like bodies in that team that are just there to be physical and to play their game. If Zaha was in a passing side or in a side that like wants to be dominant on the ball, I'm not saying go to like I'm not saying like go to a really good La Liga team. I'm just saying like I think at Sevilla he would flourish. Like I think at Sevilla he could be so if they can get great numbers out of Lucas Ocampos, who I think is objectively a less impressive player than Wilfried Zaha. Like he could play as a forward. Like finally play as the furthest man forward.
What about like Lyon or like Marseille? I think you'd probably be good enough on those teams.
Look what Lyon have done with players who a lot of people doubted their performance levels. Like Lyon have created some great players.
Balotelli went to Nice and got two like very good seasons. Like what I'm saying is, Ligue 1 is a good place for players to prove themselves. I feel like Zaha could go there and like absolutely rip it apart.
Definitely.
Somewhere, yeah. For sure.
You want to talk about the Coppa Italia real quick?
Yeah, sure. We can move on to that. So that was obviously a 0-0 draw after that was it? Did it go to extra time? It did.
Yeah,
right?
There's no extra time. Straight
no,
to
that's why I wasn't sure if there was extra. All right, so yeah, straight to penalties. I did notice. I believe Ronaldo was probably the fifth penalty taker, which I honestly hate that so much because it's completely just like the glory penalty. It's if you remember whichever Champions League they beat Atletico Madrid. Juan hit the post with Atletico's fifth shot, and Ronaldo got to take the fifth.
And he took it short.
Yeah, exactly. And I always thought I had no idea why you would put Ronaldo last. Like this basically proves he should not have been fifth. He probably should have been. I don't even know, like anywhere in the front. In the first three penalty takers, because you'd probably pick him.
He's
to
the best
score.
penalty taker on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. So I don't know. That one made me upset. That like
the same thing happened.
To take that for sure.
The same thing happened with Portugal. I think like 2008 or 2012 Euros against Spain. He chose to pick the fifth penalty, and then they lost before he could take it.
Yeah.
Same for the Confederations Cup in 2017 against Chile. He chose the fifth, didn't get to take it. And that penalty shootout, by the way, in 2017, Portugal, they missed all three of their penalties got saved by Bravo. They lost 3-0.
Claudio Bravo, the penalty expert.
He
He always goes for fifth though, and well, to be fair though, like let's say the Atletico, the Champions League final, like if you want one player to do it, you'd want him.
Yeah, I'd agree, but like that team I don't remember obviously the whole squad right now, but I feel like they definitely could have had him even like fourth. I feel like fourth is a huge penalty spot too.
Yeah.
At that point, usually the teams have missed maybe one each or like two to So
yeah. It's the only way you're fourth and you don't take a penalty is if like it's the Chile case where you
missed all three. Yeah. So
I just think on the balance of the game though, the penalty shootout was something I expected before the game. Like I predicted that before the game because I've watched a little bit of Juventus recently, and boy, did they love crossing the ball. Like,
Ronaldo.
my gosh. They cross the ball so frequently and inaccurately that I was surprised Napoli didn't just like run down the wing at some point and just score on the counter, because these crosses are being flung and completely missing the 18-yard box. And, like, Ronaldo has incredible jumping ability, but, like he's not elastic.
He can't jump 10 feet over two defenders.
He can't make himself taller. And it's like, I just don't understand when they have so much on-the-ball quality in that Juve squad, why they resort to doing that.
Yeah.
Because you didn't see Real Madrid do that. Real Madrid didn't do that to Ronaldo. They didn't just chuck balls in the box. They gave him the ball.
Their MO was counter, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that the reason that some of this, you know, just crossing has happened is a lack of ability to create from that like midfield area. And I think like that's the problem when you shift some of the players around, like Dybala, and like push him out of like this like hub midfield area. But I think like generally I thought that it just wasn't that fantastic a game.
Yeah, it was very
Napoli
were all outside the box. Like, they were taking pot shots for days. Like you said, Juventus didn't really have much in the attack. So I don't know, and I don't know about the penalty thing anyway, because I think what's funny is we've kind of over the past week, I think everybody's kind of criticized Ronaldo for all three possible situations. They've criticized him for missing a penalty. They've criticized him for not taking one, and criticized him for taking one and scoring.
Well, I mean, the taking one and scoring thing will happen regardless.
Like, yeah. So where's the middle ground there?
I just think
so. Yeah. I agree with you guys. Like, I think he probably should have gone earlier, because I think arguably the first penalty is one of the hardest ones. Just to step up, like if there were a crowd there, it is easily the hardest for me.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, like I think he should have stepped up and taken one earlier. Like that I'll criticize him for. The rest I won't. But yeah, I think Napoli kind of did deserve it in the end. I don't know. Just the way they played.
The only big chance is at the end when Buffon made that insane save.
Yeah.
42. I think he's 42 years old. He made that. I'm pretty sure it's a double save because
he got a second piece.
Yeah, that was the only thing that only big chance happened in the game, and then they missed that. I thought Juventus would then go on to win in penalty shootouts, but nah. Was it Merit? So yeah, obviously in the semi, Ospina got suspended because he got a yellow card after a very good performance. And then I was thinking that Merit would replace him, and he's not like a bad goalie and he's stretching the imagination. He's a very good talent, and he proved that in the penalty shootout, saving Dybala's penalty. And I think he said
Danilo. Danilo is the next one.
Danilo skied it. Danilo skied his penalty.
He whacked it.
Benucci had a strong
one. The word for it. Like, it's a terrible penalty.
Yeah, he went with the short run up, which I don't know if you've ever taken a penalty, a short run up. Definitely feels.
You're gonna blast it over. I was actually thinking that. I was thinking he was gonna blast it over. Just the way.
Yeah, the short run up.
The way he was running up, I could tell he was gonna put power into it. But yeah, I thought Buffon was gonna make extreme headlines by doing a madness in the penalty shootout. but Merritt came onto the stage, and the momentum that Buffon had, it didn't really come to life in the penalty shootout. He got close to saving one, but he got very unlucky. It went through his hand.
Yeah.
Napoli won, so it was nice.
Buffon's trying to fill out his contract to have the most appearances, right, in the Juve side. Is it this season that he'll complete that?
I think this season he can get it. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. Do you still think he should?
Is it Maldini, the number one, or something?
Yeah.
Maldini.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how he does towards the end. I thought, honestly,
should we move on to something else now, or La Liga? Or?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We could go ahead. We'll talk about United next time for sure. But I don't know. Only one game really. It wasn't nothing to talk about there. So we can move on to La Liga, which I haven't actually seen much of, but obviously looking at the table, things are close. And
I think 2 or 3 games have happened since our last podcast in La Liga.
Yeah.
Well, now is the 3rd match week, but 2 match weeks have gone.
Yeah, so Barca specifically tied Sevilla 0-0, and then Real went on to win. So that closed the gap to, 2 points now? Oh no, just 1 point.
No, it's tied. They're ahead on their head-to-head record because they won.
They won the Clasico.
Okay. Yeah, well, but I mean, Barca's tied as we speak right now with Athletic Club Bilbao.
Okay, I gotta head out, lads.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you for joining us, Nick.
Yes, sir.
See you next time.
So for Real Madrid, the game against Valencia was that? Did we cover that in the other podcast? I don't remember.
I said Barcelona tied Sevilla. Did they play Valencia before that one?
But then there was a game.
The game was going on right after our last episode.
Oh, okay. Well, there was what about the 2-0 win when Ansu Fati?
Yeah, 2-0 was against Leganes. That was Tuesday, a week ago.
Well, Real Madrid. So they had the win against Real Sociedad. I think there's a game before that, but I guess we should talk about that game. The 2-1 win.
2-1 win over Sociedad.
This had just some I might be biased, but it was crazy refereeing.
It was highly controversial just because I think it was such borderline calls. Like we saw yesterday in Man City's result, Aguero was awarded a penalty for essentially what looked like a 50-50. They went back in VAR and looked at it and awarded the penalty. But with Vinicius, he was right in front of goal, and it seems as if there was minimal contact.
It's nothing.
His feet got caught up. Both of his feet got caught up, and he missed the shot, and the chance was gone. And he did take the shot, and they still awarded the penalty. And I thought that was an interesting one. It wasn't like he was pushed as he was taking the shot. He was pushed and then took the shot.
He kind of kicked out, but they call those ones in the middle of the field though, because that's always a big debate. What's a foul?
It's a difficult
what's a
one.
penalty?
Yeah, they might call it in the middle of the field. Yeah, they call it in the middle of the field because if it's 50-50 or even 40-60, it won't be that controversial to give the call. It's not that much of a big deal. But that's why they give it. But when it's a penalty, you need to be more certain about it. And when I saw that in Lifetime especially, I just thought Vinicius just missed the chance like he always does. He always misses big chances.
Yeah, it was definitely a soft one. And I think Sociedad had a goal disallowed as well.
It was so stupid. Yeah, they called it offside, but the player did not make a play for the ball, and he was 2 yards away from it.
Yeah, VAR, we have such borderline. If you remember, I think about the United game where I think it was Everton. Someone was just on the ground.
Yeah, I remember.
De Gea, and they called him offside.
It was his leg was out.
Yeah,
and the shot was taken, and he moved his leg
out of the way,
and then the ball.
That's different. Because
I think that's closer. That's closer to being a call that makes sense than this one, because
it didn't make sense.
Adnan Januzaj is taking the ball inside and shooting at the near post, and if you watch the camera angle, there's only one player between his line, Courtois' line of sight, and Januzaj.
Yeah, I see.
And as he takes the shot, the Sociedad player only steps even further out of the way.
Yeah, I just watched that. I can't believe they called that offside.
So, shout out to Adnan Januzaj. Had a goal robbed from him, United Academy product. But I think that Sociedad on the day probably deserved to draw that, but once again, it was just like it was such a low quality game. There were so many like just low quality periods of play, and then you look at a team like Atletico Madrid who are like playing very well. Barcelona have struggled a little bit. It just seems like the top two teams are winning games, but they're winning games. Well, Barca did draw, but they're getting points in games that they're not actually playing that well. So I think that's been a thing that we've seen in many leagues with teams coming back. Like we saw Liverpool haven't been good.
Yeah,
In their game against Everton, they were very just stagnant and looked as if they wanted to win the game, but didn't really necessarily have the rhythm or the quality to do that.
Similar to United as well.
Barca have scored some goals, but it's not like Messi scoring two goals every week. But it's I don't know. It's been a strange resumption, and I think the title race is going to be really interesting now.
Yeah. So it's now halftime. Barcelona is still tied. So if the game ended like that, Barcelona will be 1 point up on Real.
It's a shame it has to come down to controversial moments to make it interesting.
But also, that Real Sociedad game, like you thought it ended there, those two mistakes that were in favor of Real Madrid. But then Benzema had is like a dubious call. It's a tough one, but like it hit the top of his arm, and like the thing is though, it's because Messi. Let me make sure. Okay. All right. The thing is, in the Super Cup, where the Barca Atletico Madrid game where they lost 3-2, the same thing happened with Messi. He hit like the top of his arm. It was like very, very, but they called it a handball because the rules state that whether it's intentional or not, if it hits your hand, it's a handball.
But was it the shirt sleeve or was it below the shirt sleeve? Because that generally is like the rule as well that they look at.
I don't remember specifically. I don't remember specifically.
Okay.
Like, okay, maybe. I guess two wrongs don't make a right, so they should.
I think that's what everyone's problem is with VAR, the inconsistency. So some calls are called like what most people would say incorrect.
This game. I would have been fine if it was two calls in Real Madrid's favor, one in Real Sociedad. But all three, like goal calls, like one was a penalty, one was a disallowed goal, one was the potential handball. All three went in favor of Real Madrid, which is just like it just made me brutal.
Yeah, it feeds right into what people always say about Real and Barca getting calls. But I mean, what are you gonna do? It happens to everyone. You saw obviously Sheffield were cheated out of a goal for the first time. Yeah, the first time goal line technology's ever been fooled. It was so clear to see that the keeper's holding the ball behind.
Do they not have a linesman too? I guess they
not like he's probably wasn't a cross for that one, and it was tough to see. But that's the first time goal line technology has ever.
I don't think they can give the goals though. I think it just has to go on the technology, and the technology failed. Which is like
that's crazy.
But why? Okay, did you hear about what happened? Apparently, the ref got his watch beeped at halftime for goal. Did you hear about that?
Oh no, maybe. But you think someone probably sent that through because I don't know.
He has a watch that beeps.
Yeah. But I'm saying like it wouldn't have come that late normally. So maybe someone just sent that through and like to tell him. I don't know.
But like, can they not check VAR for it? Like,
I mean, I don't know. Well, VAR will probably definitely change a little bit because it seems like what leagues have been doing VAR pretty well. Like Germany, the refs actually go over and look, right? Premier League.
It never happens in the Premier League. It just never does.
Yeah, they don't go over much.
Has it happened? I don't even know.
Yeah. I think it was this season, like way earlier for the first time. Like some ref went over and actually looked at the monitor. I know, obviously MLS they look at the monitor a lot, but it's almost like the history too. Like soccer, like sports in the US, they all use like video review. So it was
the NFL.
It made sense. It just made sense that MLS was gonna have the refs actually go over with the monitor.
The style that soccer is used is actually the closest to the MLB, where there's off-site referees that are watching a live feed of the game, and then they communicate through headphones to the umpires on the field, and then the umpires just like
relay the call. Basically,
they relay the call. But if the people in New York who are phoning the umpires, if they can't make a decision, then the umpires can go and look at a screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, VAR will definitely move towards something maybe similar to that.
I think the problem with the Premier League is that referees don't want to stop the flow of the game because it's such an intense league and the pace of the game is usually so high.
Mhm.
I think it'll change. I think reviewing the VAR for the ball crossing the line is a good thing to add, I would say. Also just like reforming the way they look at handball, I think is something, especially not a handball that leads to a goal, but a handball that is given for a penalty. It seems strange sometimes.
They changed the rules and it's still not black and white. It's still like huge gray area.
Honestly, I think they now just give more leeway to defenders because before it used to be like just it literally touches the guy's like elbow on the way and it's a penalty, like regardless of where it was really going. But like, I think now they try to be more lenient for defenders. Yeah, exactly. But they say that, but sometimes even like sometimes you can just skim off a forearm and like the forearms are maybe within the shoulders and it still counts as a penalty. So I don't know. We'll definitely see some changes.
You can it could be not intentional handball, but if your arm's in an unnatural position, they'll call that. So like if you're stretching your hands.
But see, that's another gray area, unnatural position, because sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, so
that's all.
Oh yeah, like sliding. Like sometimes players slide.
Yeah, sliding is a big one.
How like you have to use your.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying they've gotten a lot more lenient. Before, like if it touched the player's arm whilst they're sliding and it's in a natural position, it's still a penalty. But now they would be more lenient as far as that. But moving back towards La Liga. Barcelona on 66 points if they draw as we speak, and Real Madrid on 65. And then third, Atletico Madrid, who Seth and Nick had mentioned are playing amazingly right now, have 55 points. So they don't really look like they'll be grabbing second anytime soon.
No, they're just looking at Champions League. They're looking at the top one. They were 6 points before the resume of La Liga. They were like 6th place.
Yeah.
So now they can easily get third with this form they're on.
So they only have to fend off Sevilla, who's 2 points behind them, and then Getafe is 6 points behind. So I mean,
Getafe is dropping points. Getafe dropped many points after the resume.
Yeah, it's more the same for La Liga, honestly, as far as like top 3, top 4. Barca, Real, Atletico, then Sevilla. So I don't know.
Sevilla have been decent.
Yeah, Sevilla's always been a team that is right up there. They've won Europa League countless times. So
yeah, they never like have a like extreme horrible. Like the worst they finished was like around 8th or 9th, I think, in the 2015-16 season. I remember that year they didn't win a single away game, which is like crazy, like in La Liga. They were the only,
that's insane.
Team in La Liga to not win an away game. But that year it didn't matter because they won the Europa League. They qualified for Champions League next year. So even in the 1 year they did bad in the league, they won the Europa League. So yeah, they're a very consistent team. They're always in Europe every single season.
All right, then. I mean, I guess we can start to wrap up here and just look ahead. Obviously,
we should talk about the Celta Vigo game, probably the 6-0.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. That was such like a blip. What do you have to say about it? It seemed
Seth,
like almost.
Seth, you watched that game, right?
So Celta Vigo from the beginning of that game looked very good up until the red card, which just sent them into the stratosphere. But I think Celta Vigo is such an interesting team because they have so many players who have been either rejected or moved on from high-profile teams and have come to actually do have come to do very well in spurts in other teams. Like Rafinha's in that team right now.
Is Dennis Suarez there? Or?
Yeah,
Dennis Suarez is in that team.
Goal as well.
Iago Aspas is in that team. Iago Aspas, I think, is one of those players who finds his way back to a team and is their sole inspiration. He's like the reason why they're able to have hope of staying up. But that was exactly what I would describe as a blip, Marcus, in that way, because you're saying it was just out of nowhere they had this huge result. The red card helped them, but I mean they were taking a lot of shots before the red card, and I think their team is so front heavy and they have so little quality at the back that they, in the summer, if they do survive, they really need to start looking at reinforcing the back line because most of their back line has moved on. Roncaglia.
They have
on.
Murillo right now though. They have Murillo, the Colombian.
Yeah, and he's on loan though from Sampdoria, so it's another loan deal. Rafinha's also on loan.
I remember Murillo went at Barcelona for a loan. That was like,
yeah, but I just think the team is very front heavy, and they need to figure out the back line, and they could be successful again, but I think it'll be a while before we see them near the European spots at all because they've just been so torrid over the last 2 seasons. But I mean, it was a great watch. They were incredible, and they were just scoring like the most amazing goals. But yeah, definitely just a blip in my opinion.
I don't know. Celta Vigo, they're 16th right now, 4 points off being relegated. So they really have to.
And that's good for their goal difference too. Because never mind. There's no goal difference in La Liga. Well, like there is, but it's head to head first.
Oh, they do head to head first. Okay, I didn't know that. Wow. Yeah. So I mean, looking also at the bottom of the table, it's Espanyol with 24, Leganes with 25, and then Mallorca with 26. So
yeah,
it's really tight down there.
Espanyol might go down, which is like very surprising. They've always been a mainstay.
Yeah.
In La Liga.
So as I was saying, looking ahead, actually, Real's facing Mallorca next. So you probably pegged them to win that game for sure.
I'm not even gonna watch that game unless it's.
Though surprisingly, Mallorca have actually had some great games against the top teams, which is interesting. But it's been their form that's been really bad. They had some great results, and they have some great players in that team. It's just they haven't been able to pull any wins out of any of those good performances. So, yeah, they look pretty doomed, especially Real Madrid won that game. We all expected them to.
Do you know who's Mallorca's manager? I don't know, but do you know who their coach is?
Can check right now.
Well, no, I just wanted to say, like, if he does the double over Madrid, because they won their home game earlier this season, he deserves, like.
Vicente Moreno from Spain.
Moreno.
All right, if Vicente Moreno, if he does the double over Real Madrid, then Barcelona have to like offer him a free job, like in the future.
An automatic clause.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, another big game I just saw is Real Sociedad and Celta Vigo. That's a big one as well because Celta Vigo obviously just came off the big win, and Real is I think what 5th? No, they're 7th. But I mean, it'll still be an
Real
also have a ton. They have a ton to play for this season. They really do. They have the Copa del Rey final against Bilbao, and they're fighting for a spot in Europe if they can keep these performances up. I mean, they played well against Real Madrid. They have a lot of young talent. If they can keep those around for next season, they're going to be looking good. Obviously, they're not going to hold on to Martin Odegaard, but they still have Alex Isaac, Zubeldia, Miko Marino, and a very, very, very good
Porto, Willian Jose.
But their backline is excellent, like so excellent. Elizondo and
Inigo Martinez, or no,
it's Inigo Martinez and Elizondo is there.
I think Inigo's at Athletic Bilbao. I don't know.
Oh yeah, Inigo left. It's Elizondo and
Nacho.
Oh, Nacho and Monreal's playing left back too.
Yeah.
He's been good, but I can't think of the other center back. But their defense has been good. And I think they have a great team. Seemingly their coach is pretty adept, but yeah, I think I would love to see them in Europe. I don't know what it will do to their league form. We've seen teams like Burnley struggle when they go into the European competition for the first time in a while, but I would love to see them in Europe.
It's been a while too. So they've actually been poor during the resume. Like in their 3 games they didn't win. I think they drew twice and lost or something like that. They've which is kind of a bummer because if they won like one of their games, they would have been in great position. But yeah, the chance to make it's just lower now. But I think like definitely like worst case scenario. I mean, wait, they could still win Copa del Rey, which is like obviously a guaranteed Europa League spot. But they could finish like top 6, which means they won't have to go through qualifiers. Because when Burnley got to Europa League, They actually didn't make it to the group stage. They went through the qualifiers, but they had to go through like 3 rounds or something.
Yeah, qualifying's tough because you have to start earlier in the summer, and you kind of have to win those games if you want to be in the competition and see the benefits from it as well.
If they want to either make it with the cup final or get like top 6, top 5.
Yeah, they can actually still take fifth. They're only 2 points behind fifth place in top 8. So
Hatafi's there. Okay, and Hatafi
Yeah.
have been bad too this year. They've also I don't think they've won a game in the last 3.
yeah. So I mean that's La Liga. La Liga is definitely an interesting one for relegation and the top 2 as well. Not a little bit opposite of the Premier League where it seems like relegation is kind of decided as far as Norwich and well maybe not really Aston Villa but pretty much Norwich. But you'd think that the bottom 3 right now would probably get relegated. But yeah, looking ahead for the Premier League, there's definitely some games that are crucial coming up. Obviously, the big one tomorrow is United and Sheffield. That could decide, who gets to go to Europa League. There's Aston Villa, Newcastle relegation battle, Norwich, Everton, another one, Wolves, Bournemouth. There's just so many games.
Do you think Sheffield have been shocking since the resume?
What do you say, Seth?
Sheffield have been shocking since the resume. They've looked very bad.
When you say they kind of, well, I guess obviously you can't say they won the Aston Villa game, but I mean they did score at first, and the game would have been different.
It was pretty much their only chance the whole game.
Yeah, it didn't seem like after that.
Their attack was even worse than it was. And then they got a red card. John Egan got a red card, and they got trounced by Newcastle in that game because of that. But they really, really need to make some signings in the attack. If they want to stay competitive, if they want a European spot, they need better players than who they have right now. Billy Sharp is not a European-level striker.
McBurney
John Fleck's not going to save you with 2 goals in a game randomly. That's not going to happen every time.
McGoldrick not scoring.
McGoldrick doesn't has a couple goals. They have a truly, truly pathetic level of squad depth. And if they want to be in Europe, they need to just sign more players.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they're doing. To even be right now, they're pretty much confirmed out of relegation of 40-something points, so they can lose the rest of their games, and they'll be safe, which is insane. The teams everyone tipped at the beginning to go down. It's similar to I think it was Huddersfield a couple of seasons ago or something like that. It might have been Huddersfield where there's a team that got promoted and they just did not have any quality at all.
Yeah, if you remember, Fulham got promoted, and people thought they were kind of going to do what Sheffield was doing because they did spend the money. They got what's the German Schürrle.
They got Schürrle.
Fulham was predicted top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were going to stay up for sure. Yeah, they got relegated right away. So I don't know. Just goes to show the Prem, you just never know.
Yeah,
really.
But just to finish the episode, Benfica just lost to Santa Clara in memory of Rob's career as a sports fan. We salute him.
That's insane how it's one of those games where even if they win, it doesn't matter. It's papering backs. They had to win that game. It's Santa Clara are just not a good team. They'll be expected to. They're expected to win that game by multiple goals, 4 or 5-0. So it's crazy. And then they start losing, and then you know what? They do come back to 3-2, and then they concede a penalty and a last-minute goal. It's hopeless. If Porto can somehow one-up them and draw points again, I don't know.
I just think it's a pattern we've seen across leagues that the dominant team in the league before the break, even though their form was pretty bad, doesn't always become the dominant team after the break. And I think Benfica fans are probably really, really confused about that break because the break would have seemed like a welcome thing because they were playing so badly, but they've come back and still played so badly. So Benfica on that note, I think that's it.
Yeah, we've covered a good deal. We're excited to see some more games in the next couple of weeks. Definitely when Champions League comes back, it's on a little bit. I think MLS tournament is going to start soon, but we can talk about that another time as well. So for the Sports Life Network Soccer Podcast, I've been Marcus. We've had Seth and Amir. Thank you for joining me. We've had Nick as well, left early. So tune in to the next episode. And hopefully Rob will be alive and well after being a Benfica fan.
I don't know.
And we'll see him next time for sure.
All right, see you guys.
All right, thank you for watching, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.